at Psalm 4 and Psalm 5. So if you'd like to follow along in your Bible, that's where we'll be, Psalm 4 and Psalm 5. But um, as you get there, I want to read for you a little pattern out of the gospel or the Genesis 1 and see if you can pick up on it. And the start of the book of Genesis, the start of the Bible, we are told that God creates and that before he creates, the world is without form and it is void. In the Hebrew, those words are tohu and bohu. I think they're great because they rhyme, right? Tohu and bohu. That means chaos. It's dark. It's formless. We're not sure what's happening. Spirit hovers over the waters and God creates, and out of chaos, he brings creation. And so I want to read for you just a little pattern that we can find in Genesis 1 and see if you can catch on to it. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was evening and there was morning one day. And God said, "Let there be a firmament," and there was evening and there was morning a second day. And God said, "Let the waters be gathered together," and there was evening and there was morning a third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament," and there was evening and there was morning a fourth day. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures," and there was evening and there was morning a fifth day. And God said, "Let there bring forth living creatures," and there was evening and there was morning a sixth day. So maybe you caught on to the pattern that is presented to us in Genesis 1, a pattern of ordering days as evening and then morning. Evening and morning, day 1, evening and morning, day 2, evening and morning, day 3. And it's not how we pattern our days. And why is it important? It seems like a kind of an odd thing from the start of Genesis. We don't structure our calendar, our week like that, right? We're on Sunday morning. We're not halfway through Sat Sunday, right? I'm not advocating that you start jumbling all the days around, but there's a pattern here, a pattern that leads us from chaos to cosmos, from chaos to creation, from chaos to cadence. Cadence is a rhythmic flow of movement or sound. You might be familiar with singing or reciting lines as you march to keep the rhythm. Out of nothingness, out of darkness, out of disorder, into life. And so all week at camp, we talked about promises and we talked about patterns and practices to become restful people, to gain rest. And I wrote down so many notes and I thought that was really good. I'm going to try that. That's really good. I'm going to try that. But I also know that I'm a procrastinator. And so I know that if I say tomorrow I'm going to do that thing, I probably will, but not before like 9 p.m. I'm going to do all of the other things. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I should probably try to work in that practice that I learned about at church camp. And so as the week went on, I was thinking to myself as I was, again, reading over Psalm 4 and Psalm 5 and Genesis 1, there's got to be a way, right, to get the rest at the beginning. Because being stressed out and needing the rest and finding the rest is a good thing, but what if we could be restful at the beginning and not get to the stressed out part? There's an idea, a concept in Scripture called first fruits. We talk about it most often when we talk about tithing, right? And giving to the church. We say we give of the first of our paycheck, the first of our yield, so that we make sure that we do it, first off, but also it's a sign of trust in God. If a farmer gives the first of his food, it says that I believe that more is coming. And so this pattern of structuring our days or seeing them in our minds as evening, morning days is a pattern that gives God the first of our time and the first of our rest, the first fruits of our time. It's an interesting one that is brought to us by the Psalms, not just Genesis. We're going to look at Psalm 4, which is an evening prayer, and then Psalm 5, which is a morning prayer, and they are put in this order on purpose. It's a cadence from chaos to creation. Let's read Psalm 4 together. Answer me when I call you, my righteous God. Give me relief from my distress. Have mercy on me and hear my prayer. How long will you people turn my glory into shame? How long will you love delusions and seek false gods? Know that the Lord has set apart his faithful servant for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. Tremble and do not sin, or in your anger do not sin. When you are on your beds, search your hearts and be silent. Offer the sacrifices of the righteous and trust in the Lord. Many, Lord, are asking, who will bring us prosperity? Let the light of your face shine on us. Fill my heart with joy when their grain and new wine abounds. In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. So this is a evening prayer from the psalmist. We're going to take some time and kind of linger in the language and the verbs of verses 4 and 5, the instructions of how we might end our night. In your anger, do not sin. When you are on your beds, search your hearts and be silent. Offer the sacrifices of the righteous and trust in the Lord. The Message, paraphrase, says it this way: complain if you must, but don't lash out. Keep your mouth shut and let your heart do the talking. Build your case before God and wait for his verdict. This is a roadmap of what it might look like for us in our evening prayer to enter into the rest of God. So the first thing is to tremble or to be angry. Eugene Peterson says, complain if you must. Have you ever had a bad day? Yeah, you ever had a bad day? You think God cares if you have a bad day? I think so. I think the psalmist is very clear. Like, if today was bad, tell it to him. Today was bad. Today had some things that did not go the way that they should have gone, or I think they should have gone, and I'm pretty upset about what happened today, and I need to just lay this out to you. So tremble, or in your anger, lay it before God. Complain if you must. Complain if your day was bad. If you have anger, present it. Right? When Katie and I were going through our pre-marriage process, we lived in different states, and so we had to go to several different marriage shower type things, and we'd get these advice cards that people would write down all the things that made their marriage so great, and probably 40% of them said, do not go to bed angry. And we're like, okay, I mean, that sounds like good advice. And then you live with another human being and you annoy each other, and you're like, this is really difficult to just not go to bed angry because they've made me really mad and they're laying 2 feet to my right. Like, I don't understand not going to bed angry. I go to bed angry all the time. It's good biblical advice, but it's because of this second line. But do not sin. Be angry. Tell God your anger, but do not sin, or do not lash out. Our anger is not a work agenda for us to plan our vengeance that will fix the wrong. What is wrong in the world is God's business, and God will welcome us into that business come the morning when we know the plan. Meanwhile, God is at work in ways far deeper than any of our meddling or our planning will ever reach. The psalmist says to tell God that you're angry, but do not sin. Do not wish ill against other people. Do not say, God, tonight I'm really upset with my neighbor, and I hope that I have dreams that allow me to scheme my vengeance against them. Or, God, this person has wronged me. If it be your will, let something bad happen to them in return. That's not the way that this works. But it's also a handing over of our anger, that we would not just pick it up again when we get up in the morning. Handing it over, that we would be angry and admit that we're angry because there are things that anger us and we are human. But we would not be people of vengeance or plotting or scheming. And so the first thing that we do when we start our evening prayer routine with God is that we admit our anger, but we do not sin. The second thing that we do is we let our hearts do the talking, or when you're on your beds, search your hearts. Commune with your hearts on your bed, as another translation says. Speak to yourself. Listen to yourself. Take inventory. Check on your own status. We're pretty good, most of us, at lying to others about doing well when things are going poorly. Not all of us, but most of us. And some of us, maybe this is you, are even really good at lying to ourselves about how poorly things are going. It's all good. Everything's great. It's going to be fine. Everything's good. Tomorrow's a new day. It's going to be fine. I'm doing fine. I'm doing okay. There are people in our lives that have concern for us, and sometimes we feel like we have to over-explain to them, like, no, really, seriously, I'm doing okay. But sometimes, if we're being honest, we have that conversation with ourselves where we're trying to convince ourselves that we're fine. The psalmist says, be honest with yourself. Check in on yourself. Take inventory. And then be silent. There's nothing more that needs to be said. Don't over-explain it. Don't talk yourself into anything. This is who you are. I am a chronic over-explainer. I find that part of that might be because groups of people give me minutes to talk about things all of the time. And so I always take minutes to talk about things all of the time. And so when I'll explain things to my wife, I'll explain something, and then I will make sure that she knows what I'm not saying. And so I'll take the opposite of what I just said. She'll say, you could have said that in a lot less words, over and over again. Or we'll be talking about, hey, we should maybe spend money on this. And she's sold. We're on the same page, but I'm still trying to convince her. And she's like, stop talking. Sometimes the words just need to stop. It's the end of the day. There's no more time for us to just put a couple more words, just spend the day a little bit better, to just lobby to God a little bit more. It's time to just be quiet. The Message translation says, keep your mouth shut. Be quiet. One of the questions we asked our junior high students was, can you be alone with yourself in silence? If we put you in a room, there's no TV, no computer, no phone, no nothing to entertain you, no games, no books, and just said, sit with yourself for 10 minutes and don't say anything. Could you do it? And several students told me that sounds like maybe the worst case scenario that I could imagine. But can we? Can we be alone with ourselves in silence and just be honest with, like, today did not go well. I'm probably not doing as well as I ought to do, but staying up another 10 minutes, trying to hash it all out in my head, trying to say just the right thing is not going to fix it right now. So I'm just going to sit here and be silent. And when our silence is done, we offer the sacrifice of the righteous to the Lord, and we trust in him. What does that mean, to offer a sacrifice to God? We think sacrifice, our brains might go to like a lamb on an altar. But an offering is something that is laid before the Lord and that he makes something of it. What was the purpose of the burnt offering? It was for the forgiveness of sins, the acknowledgement of sins. But it also served a secondary purpose in that the priests got to eat the food. It helped them maintain and sustain. And so what we do when we offer a sacrifice or an offering of God is we say, okay, it's your turn. I'm giving you total control. I'm giving you control because I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to go to sleep, and I'm not going to be able to do anything while I'm sleeping. Some of us can do some things while we sleep. Some of us walk while we sleep. Some of us talk while we sleep. Some of us snore while we sleep. My baby daughter does this really cool thing that all of us can do as babies, but then we lose that ability as we get older, which is kind of a bummer, because she can eat while she sleeps, which I would like to be able to eat while I sleep. That sounds amazing. But we can't do much. We're not in control. And so what it means when the psalmist says that we offer a sacrifice to God, it means that we say, God, I literally can't help what happens next. I'm going to be incoherent. I'm going to have my eyes shut. I'm not going to hear what's going on around me. I'm going to be in total and complete trust in you. And so in many ways, whether we've thought about it this way or not, sleep is a profound act of worship. It's trust in God deeply enough to just say, I'm going to not be able to fend for myself for hours and trust that I will wake up. It's a deep level of trust. Deep level that he is doing something. And so we offer ourselves to him, our time, not our perfection, not our highlights, not our social media persona, not our carefully sculpted arguments or explanations. We just leave ourselves before him in prayer and say, I'm going to shut my eyes now and trust that I will open them. And so the psalmist says in verse 8, in peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, God alone, helps us dwell in safety. We live in a time in human history that if you wanted to tomorrow, you could get up in the morning and for every minute of your entire day, you could research and watch and read and listen to things that would tell you every second that you should be terrified and you should not feel safe. We could look to be offended, look to be scared, look to be frightened, and we would keep finding things and keep finding reasons. And yet the psalmist tells us that we can dwell in safety with God. We can have peace and lie down and know that everything will be fine. Probably once a week I do this. I get into bed, lights are off, pull the covers over myself, roll over, and then my brain goes, did you lock the door? And I'll go, no, I locked the door. I locked the door, it's fine. Did you actually lock the door? What if the door blows open? What if like a critter gets in our house? What if a person comes into our house? And I'm like, I'm just gonna go to sleep. And then eventually I'm like, okay, I have to go check to see if I locked the door. So I get up and I go and I check both of our doors, and 95% of the time they were both locked the whole time. But I didn't have peace in lying down. I wasn't comfortable with my surroundings. I thought that maybe there was an issue, and so I didn't lie down in safety. I didn't lie down in peace, but we are offered this. And sometimes our safety and our peace that's lacking is from something far more serious than maybe I forgot to lock the door. Maybe you actually think someone is out to get you. Maybe you are concerned about the violence around you or all sorts of things. Your family dynamics, the political dynamics, lots of things that could cause you to legitimately say, maybe I'm not safe sleeping. Maybe I shouldn't have peace, but Scripture says that God is bigger than all those things. And so we can close our eyes and lie down and rest in peace and in safety. When I was a kid, I used to recite this prayer with my mom every night. Maybe you've heard it. Maybe you prayed it with your kids. Now I lay me down to sleep. Pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I die before I wake, pray the Lord my soul to take. I remember as a little kid going like, why are we talking about dying right before I go to sleep? It's kind of a weird prayer. But when I think back on it, it's a very biblical prayer of just like, okay, you're in charge. Keep me, because I can't myself. Keep me in your peace. Keep me in your safety. I lie down and I sleep in the peace and in the safety of God. The evening and then morning cadence from chaos to creation allows us to start our days with God working rather than ending our days with a frantic working of our own and holding on to that last little bit of control. It's something so simple that could change everything. And again, I'm not advocating for you to start inventing new days and changing the calendar and telling everyone you work on a third shift schedule now. And like start to have all of these quasi days that don't match everybody else's calendar. But I am saying, have you ever not wanted to get up in the morning? Have you ever not wanted to get up in the morning? Yeah. If you're an adult, most of the time, didn't you have to anyway? Yeah, there's an expectation. You just get out of bed and you just have to do it. You just have to, right? There's an expectation that your day has to start. You can't just stay in bed. What if we did it the other way around? How many times did we stay up later than we should have because we had to get stuff done and we were still, our to-do list was not done. And if I could just put a little bit more effort into it, and this is me too. I need to hear this message. I was sitting at that back computer where Charlie is right now, going over my notes at midnight last night, getting that last little revision in because my week didn't go as planned. What if we said, no, it's time for sleep? I must start my day. I must rest in God. I must let him work while I rest because I need it. And it's the way that this structure has been put in place from creation, that out of the chaos and the darkness of our night, God creates. And so God's going to work while I rest because that's the way the world works. Instead of the day is forced upon us and productivity is forced upon us until we can't anymore. And so we go to sleep. And rather, it's the other way around, that we start with the rest of the Lord because we know we need it. We force ourselves sometimes to go to sleep. So what if we just tried the resting first? Eugene Peterson says this in his book on the Psalms. Even though it is decreed in our bodies that we return to this sleep, it is not easy. We want to stay in control. We want to oversee the operation. Evening prayer is a deliberate act of the Spirit that cultivates willingly what our bodies force on us finally. Evening prayer is something that can shape our lives into submitting our evenings to God rather than waiting until we're too exhausted to keep our eyes open and think that that striving is what God calls us to. So let me ask you, have you ever fallen asleep in a car? Okay. Hopefully you weren't driving said car when you fell asleep. I've done that 2 or 3 times working third shift. But if you fall asleep in a car, it's kind of a disoriented experience. You wake up somewhere entirely different. Maybe you know where you're going and then you've seen the progress. But a lot of times, maybe especially when we were kids, we had no idea where we're going. We wake up and the world around us just looks so different. The psalmist wants us to know that every single day we fall asleep and we wake up in a different place than where we were when we went to bed. God is at work creating, healing while we're resting, reconciling, mending, doing work while we're resting. We do not wake up in the same place that we were. It's not just put a pin in the day and we'll pick it up tomorrow. It's let that day rest, give it to God, and start over new. What has God been doing while I've been sleeping? God's been at the wheel. Where are we now? God doesn't want to just reduce your anxiety. He wants to offer you a new life, a new, ever-renewing one that is different than the one that you had before you surrendered to sleep. New opportunities, new ways of life, new ways and new opportunities to love your loved ones and the people around you. The cadence of chaos to creation. And then it's morning. We're going to read Psalm 5, which is a morning verb, but before then we'll read the second half of that quote from Eugene Peterson. He says, when we open our eyes, the day is half over. While we have been sleeping, God has been working. We wake into a world in which God's word has been making aspens and salamanders and puppies. We open our eyes and see that he has brought out of darkness light and life. That God has been working. A big part of the season of life that my wife and I are in right now is that we have a baby, right? It kind of dictates most things that we do, right? But man, is our baby cute and we love her and what joy and light she brings to our lives. And so in our small group at camp, I was asking our kids, like, do you like babies? And they're like, yeah, I like babies, right? Most people like babies. Did you ever wake up in the morning and say, I wonder how many babies were born while I was asleep? Isn't that a much better way to start your day? I wonder how many good things God did while I was asleep. How many life-giving, light-giving, good things that God has done, healing people and fixing relationships and going out ahead of us. I wonder how many babies, he says, how many aspens, salamanders, how many puppies God has created while we were sleeping. It's a much more hopeful way to start our day. And so we read Psalm 5. Psalm 5 is a morning prayer. Both are a psalm of David. Listen to my words, Lord. Consider my lament. Hear my cry for help, my King and my God. For you I pray. For to you I pray. In the morning, Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my requests before you, and I wait expectantly. For you are not a God who is pleased with wickedness. With you, evil people are not welcome. The arrogant cannot stand in your presence. You hate all who do wrong. You destroy those who tell lies, and the bloodthirsty and the deceitful, Lord, you detest. But I, by your great love, can come into your house in reverence and bow down towards your holy temple. Lead me, Lord, in your righteousness because of my enemies. Make your way straight before me. Not a word from their mouth can be trusted. Their hearts are filled with malice. Their throat is an open grave. Their tongues tell only lies. Declare them guilty, O God. Let their iniquities be their downfall. Banish them for their many sins, for they have rebelled against you. But let all who take refuge in the Lord, let them stand and sing for joy. Spread your protection over them, that those who love your name may rejoice in you. Surely, Lord, you bless the righteous. You surround them with your favor as with a shield. So this is David's morning prayer. Psalm 5. In the morning, Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my requests before you and I wait expectantly. Is there anybody who's a morning quiet time, morning prayer person? Like me, man, I struggle with that because I'm just not awake for like a while after I get out of bed. Do you ever pray and then you wait for the response? This is what David says. Or do we pray and then we're like, oh, I'm sure we'll figure it out along the way. And we just go on with our day. He says, I wait expectantly. What's the plan? You've been working while I've been sleeping. So what are we doing today? But oftentimes we have a plan already when we get up in the morning, right? The kids have to be to daycare and school at a certain time, and I have to come into the job, and there's certain things and meetings that I have, and then there are meetings at night, and Katie has to go to work, and we're making breakfast and getting kids dressed and talking about if we need to put food in the crock pot for that night. And very rarely have we said, like, hey, God, what's the plan? We have the plan. It says, in the morning, Lord, hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my requests before you, and I wait expectantly. I've given you an offering. What did you do while I was sleeping? You're faithful. What's new? What should I be looking for today? In verse 8, he says, lead me, Lord, in your righteousness because of my enemies. Make your pathway straight before me. Another way to say, make your pathway straight before me is direct my path. God, be the GPS of my life. Say, this is the way we're going today. Show the right path forward, not to revenge or striving or anxiety or burnout or validation seeking or trying harder, but to the purposes of God. Lead me in your righteousness and your right way of doing things. We don't wake up in the car that's been traveling and then say, it's morning, God, I can take a shift at the wheel. We're still riding along and he is leading us. Putting the rest first allows us to remember that God goes before us. One of the most repeated and most powerful promises of the Old Testament. He's not working the late shift cleaning up the mess that we have frantically left him as if we're the main characters. Rather, he is moving, working, creating. A phrase that you may or may not be familiar with, depending on how often you talk to young people, is that they'll say that somebody is giving main character energy. If you know what that means, it means there's somebody who thinks that everything is about them all the time, always. Somebody else's struggles or somebody else's successes, we're going to find a way to make that about me. I'm coming into this room, and now I'm the most important thing in this room. So I'm the main character of the story. Everything is about me, and there's a way for us to, while trying to be good Christians and do what we ought to do, there's a way for us to just get up and attack the day and think that we're the main characters when God is moving, God is working, God is creating. And so he waits expectantly. He asks for the right pathway forward. What's my plan today? Interrupt my plans today, God. Show me what needs to be done. Verse 12, he says, surely, Lord, you bless the righteous. You surround them with your favor as with a shield. And who are the righteous? Those who have just asked him for his righteousness 4 verses earlier. Those who follow God's wisdom and his path. You go first. I'll lead. You surround me with a shield. One of the things we talked about in our small groups at camp was this idea of the New Testament talking about people of peace being people whose gentleness is evident because they're at peace. They know that they're surrounded. They know that everything is going to be fine. And so they're not on the offensive, ready to lash out. They're not seeking to be offended. They're not seeking to be offensive. They're sheltered behind a shield. They're allowing their gentleness to be known. And so the Lord goes out ahead of us. This is repeated by the prophet Isaiah several times. And he even adds that the Lord is behind you. He's before you and he's behind you. He surrounds you with favor. If you want to read some Old Testament this week, the end of Deuteronomy 1 and the start of Deuteronomy 31, kind of the book ends. God says really difficult things and then says, do not be terrified, do not be afraid. I am the Lord, I am with you, I go before you. Book ends that whole story of his people by reminding them that he goes before. That Moses is dead and Joshua is taking over, but it's going to be fine because God is leading them. And even to the pagan king Cyrus, when you're sending my people back, I go before you. And so we have an opportunity to put the rest first, to unplug. But we get in our own way sometimes because we talk about pattern, we talk about promise, let's talk about place as we close. Our sense of place in a modern world is obscured because of this, and I want to make this very, very clear, an invention that has just so many good uses and is very helpful in life, but also should be discerned because if you have one of these, statistically, in these 16 hours that we're awake, we touch this 88 times. 88 times in 16 hours. And if you're in the pew like, well, I don't have a smartphone, the TV remote is not far behind it. It's not far behind it. We use devices to blur the line of places. It's why one thing I shared at junior high camp is that a kind of odd millennial move. I went out and bought an alarm clock. I haven't had an alarm clock since I've had a phone because your phone has an alarm clock on it. But my alarm clock is never going to notify me when one of my dumb friends texts me at 11 o'clock at night. Just something silly that popped in their head and they thought I think it's funny. And I do think it's funny, but I should be sleeping. And my alarm clock is never going to send me all of these notifications that wake me up. My alarm clock is never going to give me access to just doom scroll or to read whatever I want when I should be sleeping. And so my phone now resides on top of my dresser on the other side of my room, and an alarm clock that's only purpose is to wake me up is right there. Because if not, I would go on having conversations with people that I would never actually allow into my bedroom in a million years. It's a place of rest. I should be there to sleep. The remote controls are out of where I can touch them. My phone is not where I can reach it. And so, as we think about unplugging what that might look like for you, we need to submit ourselves to rest. And so, I'll leave you again with just this idea that it is ours. We can put the rest first. We can have peace. We can have safety. We can put the rest first and rest in the promises of God that He goes before us. Will you pray with me?